What's up everybody, Jonathan Gauthier here. Hey, welcome to another video. It's good to see you. So today we're going to talk on how to prepare your horses to show. Now, I've got a full-length video on the horse training video series, The Comfort Zone, that explains on how to program your horse to show. This is really touching like the training and the programming of each maneuver, you know, to really optimize your maneuvers in the show pen. But this video is going to be a little bit more about how to prepare your horse to show mentally. There's some, there's going to be some tuning approach to it, but generally speaking, it's just on how to make sure that you stay out of the penalty box and optimize your maneuvers and get the best out of your horse without overdoing it or underdoing it. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is going to be lead departures. Now, the reason that I'm going to talk about something so simple as the lead departure is because sometimes something so simple, not everyone can do that so simply, especially not under the stress where a horse is anticipating what's coming and he's got the pressure of being in a show pen and you have to walk towards the judge and perform a nice lead departure so that you start your circles the right way. And a lot of the times, the horses are so anticipating or touchy or feel the pressure or stressed or nervous that they're not waiting for you to really bring your leg on the horse and cluck them into the lope, So an exercise that I like to do at home and I like to do a lot at the show when I'm walking around and I'm just chilling is desensitizing my horse to that movement of me setting my horse up to lope off, okay? So when you want to do a good lead departure, you should be able to walk with your hand on the neck, okay? And then you should be able to apply your outside leg on the rib cage of the horse in order to engage that diagonal, which is going to cause your horse to push a little harder from its outside hind leg and push that energy and channel that energy through its diagonal. And you control where the shoulders are going and where the feet are going with just pointing your hand in the direction that you're going. So that simple movement of applying the outside leg, keeping the forward motion with the inside leg, and pointing your hand either towards the inside ear or the outside ear of your horse, that should line up your horse to lope off. But he shouldn't lope off until you go or kiss or say, okay, signal your horse to lope off. There's a setup period, and then there's the signal or cue to lope off, okay? A lot of times people do both at the same time, and in practice, when you're not really, when you don't really have a care in the world and you sort of just decide to lope off and go, then it's a different scenario or situation than when you are in the show pen and you're nervous and you just spawn and you're needing to walk towards your circle and line your horse up properly, and then all of a sudden your horse is not allowing you to bring your legs close and not really responding to your hand, and so if you spend a little bit more time on working on that, desensitizing your horse to that by putting that leg, using your inside leg to keep your forward motion and hold and push into your hand until your horse sets up perfectly, and then relax your wrist, relax your legs, and don't lope off, and do that again and again and again and again. And then a little tip is, once you're in the show pen, trying that when you're going to leave that middle, trying to walk off for a step or two before you lope off, and try to have your mind really clear. Really don't think about loping off. Think about you're going to walk 10 circles before loping off. The same as when you just walk around and chill. And never does your horse anticipate a lead departure if you're not even considering a lead departure. It's only when your horse knows that's what you're about to ask. So try to free your mind off of that thought and just walk with a really relaxed state of mind, and knowing confidently that you have prepared your horse to wait for the signal for him to lope off, by repeating this exercise that I just described. Exercise number 2 is going to be for the spins. Now, the spins is where I think that we tend to overdo it, especially when we're at the horse show. And a lot of the time, if you just walk a small circle, stop, spin, okay, this is probably what your horse is going to give you there. The first time you turn is going to look a lot like what you're going to get in the show pen, and in some cases the stress and the pressure of being in a show pen may give you a little bit more sting in a turn, and you may get a little bit better. But in most cases, it'll be even a little bit worse because the start may be a little jagged, or the shutdown may not be as good. So one of the things that I like to do the most at the horse show, or preparing my horses to show in the spin, is just really relax their mind and give them a clear idea of what we're doing. And the best way to do that is simply walk a very small circle without, you can drive that hip under them a little bit, but I'm trying not to make this mechanical as little as I can, and I'm trying to keep this natural. So I'm going to encourage my horse to go forward with both legs as much as I can, and point my hand towards the inside ear, okay, and push with both legs until my horse looks in the direction that we're going, into that small circle, and really kind of wraps around my inside leg nicely and is relaxed. And when I feel that I can push my horse with both legs and lift my hand, and my horse is really relaxed in that small circle, I'll stop and turn again. And usually most horses that are a bit tense or nervous, that'll help them relax a little bit. And usually if you do this 3 times in a row, on the 3rd time, the horse will very most likely give you one of the best turns that they've ever given you. And that is probably what you would like to get in the show pen. So this has always been the safest and best way to prepare my horses to spin. Now, if you have a little bit of a lazy horse and just walking them around is not enough, then you can do the same thing at the trot, okay? And also, since you're doing such a relaxing exercise after that just brings their mind and stress level all the way back down to 0, then in the turn, if your horse is lazy, I mean, you can tell it. Like once you ask your horse to turn, you can, and it's kind of going off a little bit lazy, then go ahead and give him a good tap with your leg and say, hey, move your ass. And then they may get a little bit scared but they'll wake up, okay? And then you just relax them in that small circle walking until they're relaxed, stop and ask them again. And I promise you, usually that by the 3rd turn, you'll have the pace and cadence and try that you want, and you have a horse that is going to be really ready to go, because most of the places that horses tend to have penalties is going to be jumping out of that turn or, you know, not shutting down correctly. But I promise that if you just keep your mind really relaxed, walk that small circle, stop, turn, and then walk that small circle, stop, turn. Try to do also a bare minimum 5 or 6 turns, okay? Because you've got to do 4 in there. So I like to do 5 or 6, sometimes even a little bit more. And but I want to make sure that my first 4 or 5 are as fast as the horse can possibly go, okay? And if I feel that that was a bit much to ask, or I feel my horse is anticipating shutting down before I'm asking it to, then I'm going to allow it to slow down, okay? To even a slow spin if it wants to, if I need to. But I'm only gonna ask my horse to stop turning once I feel that he's thinking about moving his feet and looking inside that spin, instead of thinking, oh, can I quit? I want to quit. I want to quit. I'm just trying to keep going. I don't care if he's stumbling all over the place. But as long as he's thinking quit, I'm gonna try as much as I can to not quit. And when I feel that the horse is like, okay, and thinks about the turn, even for just 1 step, that's when I'm gonna shut down. Walk my circle, do it again. All right. So this is my advice for the spins. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be speed transitions. Now, speed transition, as you know, if you know me and you follow my program, is something that I do often in various circumstances and in many situations, especially in order to tune and train my slowdowns and to train my stops, my rundowns, anything that running my horse fast, you know, raises their adrenaline level and makes them a little bit nervous and makes them stressed out, and I want to get rid of that pressure, that stress, that anxiety, or that, you know, whatever worries them about running fast towards a fence, like when we're fencing or stopping, or running fast in a circle, and really bringing themselves into a slow low, but without losing any forward motion. The best way to do that is by just breaking down to a walk. So what I like to do a lot is I like to run my circle as fast as I can, as fast as my horse will allow me to, okay, knowing what my horse's capacity is or level is, and even at the show. So this is a good way for me to not be afraid to run them fast, because I'm not going to be asking them to make a perfect slowdown for the first few times. The first few times, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run really fast, then I'm going to relax myself in my saddle, take a hold of their face, and wait until they give to my hand and relax. Even if I gotta go all the way to a standstill and soften them up a little bit until they break their neck loose and that energy gets back into their body, because if they didn't respond well to that and they kind of braced against my hand and that energy shot from their body into their neck, or even if it was there before I asked them, I'm gonna do everything I can at the standstill or walking into my hand until that energy goes back in the right parts of their body, release, lope off again, and do it again. And when I can really run really fast and then take a hold of their face and relax myself in the saddle. Now make sure you don't open your legs or pressure in your stirrups too much so they don't think that you're asking them to stop, because you're not, okay? You don't want to lose any forward motion. You're just breaking them down to a walk into your hand, or breaking them into a stop into your hand, and just after that soften them up. And when you can do that without them losing any, without bracing against your hand or, you know, feeling their energy shift in any way, then I promise that when you're going to ask you to slow down, the chances that the horses perform a really good maneuver, keeping that energy in the right parts of their body, meaning using their hind end to engage that slow down and keeping their forward motion and executing a very pretty to watch speed transition, this is going to really optimize your circle and give you more chance to score. Next point we're going to talk about is the lead change. Now, a lead change, in order to be executed perfectly, it needs to be approached without any anticipation. When you watch a really good horsemanship horse, you know, they just approach that lead change like low, low change. low, low, change. Okay, and this is what you really want to do. But in reining with the fast circle, sometimes changing into a slow, or from a slow into a fast, sometimes the horses approach it, and since you're always doing it in the same place, they can be anticipating it. And anticipation is what's most of the time going to cause you some problem and take away from your maneuver or cause penalties. So what I like to do the most is to know ahead of time when I'm preparing my horse which pattern I have to know if I have to do a slow to slow lead change or slow to fast or fast to slow. But either way, what I like to do is I like to circle often and set my horse up for a lead change the same way as I would set it up for a lead departure, but then don't change and keep going. Sometimes I like to even shift my body one direction, really keeping my hand pointing in a direction that I'm actually wanting to go, because I'm not wanting to change. I'm just wanting to set up my horse to change, or pretend that, or make them think about that lead change, but not asking that lead change. And sometimes I like to shift my body a little bit in the direction that I would be going if I were to ask a lead change. But since I am not changing direction with my hand and I'm guiding my horse in the same circle that I was doing, then I like to do that until I can do this and my horse just keeps going into that circle, doesn't change its diagonal and doesn't shift any body energy whatsoever. Okay, I like my horse to keep looking out of his inside eye at all times and focus on the direction that my hand is pointing. And when I can come through the middle and do a straight line and shift my body like that by keeping my hand steady, and my horse just keeps on going and stays in this diagonal, then I feel that this is a good time to ask a lead change, or I feel that my horse is ready to change lead in the show pen. Sometimes I can add a little to it by making my horse go into that small counter canter or a large counter canter, depending, until I can counter canter and my horse is not thinking about the lead change. Therefore, it's really driving its energy through its diagonal and it's set up perfectly for a change, but you don't ask for it. Go back into your circle and then break to a walk and rest, okay? So it's about setting up your horse for it as often as possible, even tricking it into possibly doing a lead change with your body position and not doing a lead change. And once you can do that, then you know that you have a horse that's really waiting for the signal to change, and then therefore you increase your chances of having a really good lead change and reducing your chances of having a penalty. Next is going to be the rundowns and stops. Now, rundowns and stops is something that I think most people struggle with horses, especially some that have been shown quite a few, because there are three components that are quite difficult to really keep the horse honest in the show pen. And by honest, I mean that the horse is just really waiting for you to ask what to do, because this is somewhere where anticipation really cranks up the adrenaline and stress levels to where sometimes you lose control over your horse completely. Okay, and this is what I call horses charging to the stop or bolting. Okay, and so the way that I break this down into 3 steps is, first you have to make a good 90-degree turn in order to have a really good straight line. And I say 90 degree, but I should really say 91 degree, because once you've turned, the stride after the turn, the horse is going to straighten itself up, and that's usually coming back about 1 degree in order to straighten up. So I like to turn 91, 92 degrees, just a little bit over, so that the stride after, as my horse stands itself up, it's straight and lined up perfectly for a run down. Now, this is a good opportunity as the horse naturally stands itself up to do the same as you were doing for a lead change or a lead departure setup, is to put your legs on your horse, lift your hand, and get control over that body energy. Okay, so if you feel that you can't do that even in practice, then in the show pen, once you turn the corner and the horse knows that he's going to need to be running full gas to stop, there's going to be very low chance that you have enough control over your horse, and then you're going to end up having to kicking in down there and justify that brace. Okay, so it's very important in practice that when you turn the corner, if you feel that you're not able to turn a nice 91-degree turn, keep turning in a small circle or break to a walk. Do something that's going to just bring your horse back to, hey, wait for me until I ask you what the second thing is. And that second thing should be straighten up and setting up, okay? So your horse should be able to turn and set up perfectly. If you're able to do that, after that, maybe your horse will go a little faster down there than you want to, but at least you've done these parts good, and so you started the maneuver, on the right side of the judging pad, and then so the next step is going to be to control that run down. But in the show pen, that's very difficult to do. So if you can control and prepare very well your turn and straightening up your horse and getting control of that body energy before you ask speed, you'll be able to you'll have a lot higher chance of running nice and straight and making it past the middle to your stop. Now, if you have a horse that likes to bolt, that's usually in anticipation of something happening, and it may not necessarily be something bad or that you intend to be bad, but we often justify that brace by either pulling them in the ground, or we justify that brace by kicking them to the stop, and so the best way to prepare your horse to not do that and to really get rid of that with practice and repetition is going to be by doing what I was talking about earlier, is by running your horse down to the end, but letting it do it, okay? Don't try and fix your horse in this situation. Just let your horse do it, because again, it's doing it in anticipation of a reaction from you. So the best thing to do is to not react at all from it, and then once you get to the end, don't ask your horse to stop. Just ask your horse to break down to a walk, soften up its neck, and then repeat that and repeat that. I promise that once you give no reason for your horse to sort of brace or bolt, you will see that he will start to keep that energy in the right parts of its body running down. I'm not saying that all of a sudden your horse is going to be weight for you a lot more going down there. It may still get ahead of you a little bit, but it's not going to brace quite as much, okay? So that's going to be the first step into making that better. So breaking down to a walk and not justifying the brace in that run as often as possible, it's going to be my recommendation here. Next, when you feel like your horse is running a little bit ahead of you, there's a time where drawing it in the ground is a good way to say to your horse, wait for me, and it's also a good way to test your brakes in a way. But when you do that, you want to close your fingers on the reins. You don't want to be pulling your horse too hard in the ground, because then you will definitely cause a harder or stronger brace next time. So so I like to turn that corner and then sit back and imagine I'm going to run my horse down +1, and then when I feel my horse gets a little ahead of me, I want that to happen before the center if possible. If I feel like it didn't happen before the center, then I really don't recommend you drawing it in the ground, because past the center, then your horse needs to be thinking about going until the end, because this is going to be also another reason why horses tend to bolt, is because they think that that stop is coming way sooner than it should. So if it's before the center, draw them in the ground, soften them up, let them think about it, let them assimilate it. Too many people draw them in the ground and then turn them and then do stuff, and then the horse doesn't even know what to think of it anymore. So it's really important after each correction, whether it was to make sure that your horse ran all the way to the end, so you had to kick him a little bit to the end, or you drew him in the ground before the center to say, hey, wait for me, just let your horse assimilate it, soften it up, bring the stress levels back down to 0, lope off, and do that again, and repeat that, okay? So this is my advice on preparing your stop, and normally, I'm not the type of rider that will do like a lot of stops, especially at the shows. I want to make sure my horse runs good, and the best way to work my run down is running down and breaking down to a walk, and then I'm going to fence a few times, make sure my horse runs all the way to the end, and when it does, I'm going to try one stop, and when I do try that stop, I want to make sure that I put my horse in a situation to succeed, and when I know that my horse is now thinking of running to the end, he's waiting for me, he's responsive to the cue, and my odds of and has felt the ground, and he's reacting good and handling the ground very well, there's absolutely no reason for me to do any more stops, and I'm going to leave it at that and then just keep doing rectangles in order to prepare my horse for the show pen. Now, last and final thing I want to talk about is going to be the rollback and the backup. Now, the rollbacks is something that I really don't want to be training at the horse show, especially not in the traffic, okay, because that's kind of difficult, especially even if it's just during a fencing session. So what I really like to do when I'm at home or at the show before I hit the show pen, I like to just find a fence area somewhere where there's nobody there, and then I like to just trot my horse in a small circle, stop by the fence, give him like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 seconds to relax. When I feel that he's not thinking about rolling back, that he's chilled, then I'm just going to ask him, put in the rein, and then ask him that roll back into that fence. And then when he's past the 90-degree turn, like when he's facing the fence, that's where I'm going to kiss and give it a little tap with my outside leg, and that may rattle my horse, but then I'm just going to bring it into a small circle, let it relax, even break it down to a trot or to a walk, and then once my horse is really committed to that circle and is into that diagonal that I roll back into, then I'm going to stop again by the wall, let my horse relax there for a minute until he's not anticipating the rollback, and as that rollback. And I'm just going to repeat that and repeat that and repeat that until I have that move where it's just super nice. And I've used the wall to help me kind of practice that move without me having to interfere with my hands. And so I'm not saying don't try it and don't work it while you're fencing or test it after a stop, you know, go ahead and see what you got. But I'm saying that in order to prepare your move and not trying to overdo it, not get into a situation where you're making it worse, one of the easiest thing to do is just to use the wall and a small circle and just roll back a few times each way. And usually for me, that whatever I had getting to the show pen is just going to make that just better enough for me to go in the show pen and have a really stingy rollback and a horse that's confident about the move. Now finally, the backup. Now the backup, only thing I can tell you is that at this point, your backup should be very, very effective, especially if you're going to be using it in order to train and prepare your stops. And correct your horse in situations where he may not have responded well to you slowing down or asking it to stop. So, but But the point that I want to make here about the backup is that there are two ways to back up, in my opinion. So if I'm going to sit deep in my pocket and just kind of lower my heels and bring my shoulders back, this is the cue that tells my horse, I want you to sit down, lift your shoulder, and this is going to be more of the training approach to the backup that I'm going to use when training things that relate to that. But if I'm going to program my backup, let's say that I have a run-in stop and back up, or even if after my third stop and back up, I want to make sure that my horse doesn't think roll back and backs up as fast as possible. Well, then I'm going to sit a little bit more forward in my saddle, press a little bit more with my thigh in order to free up that hind end, so that my horse, it's easier for my horse to back up faster. Okay, I think that it's harder for the horse to back up faster if I'm getting it to sit on its hock too much and lifting its shoulder. I think that it's going to be a little bit easier for my horse to back up quick if I'm staying out of his way and squeezing a little bit with my thigh. Again, this is not going to be the body posture ideal from the rider in order to optimize your stops or something like that. But this is going to be, I think, the posture that a rider can adopt in order to help your horse back up straighter and faster, and not think about having to, and potentially not think about doing a rollback and cause a major penalty here. I also would recommend that when you're backing up, in preparing your show backup, that you use a certain sound. I like to repeat whoa, whoa, whoa. It could be just steady whoa. It could be some trainers do shh. It doesn't matter. Just find a sound that you do every time you back up your horse and you're not going to roll back, so that your horse, at the time where he may think roll back, then as soon as you make that noise, oh, okay, and it's going to think back up and forget all about that roll back and keep you out of that really big penalty that would cause if your horse were to roll back when it's meant to back up. That's it for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you want to watch the full extended version of it that I've uploaded to the Comfort Zone Horse Training video series, go ahead and watch it on that. I've explained it and detailed the 7 steps of preparing your horse to show in as much details as I could muster that day. Anyways, and so if you are not subscribed to the Comfort Zone Horse Training video series, go ahead and give it a try for 7 days free. You can check out everything and have full access for 7 days. If you find something that works for you, we will be adding way more in the weeks coming, and we add a video every week, sometimes more, and so I encourage you to go try it out. And if you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do so, as it is free and costs you nothing to do that, but definitely helps me in growing my audience. If you like this video and it has brought any value to you, please smash that like button and activate that bell so that you get notified for further videos. And anyways, that's it for me today. I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers!